Today is Thursday, November 30th. It is 12 noon. We are here today to hear an appeal by the School of the Arts for Boys Academy, also known as SABA, from a decision of the Charter School Review Board on October 18th, 2023, to revoke the charter of the school. I am John Blackburn. I will be serving as chair of the panel hearing today. The other panel members present to hear the appeal today are my State Board colleagues, Ms. Jill Kamnitz and Mr. Reginald Keena. All three of us have been duly appointed by the chairman of the State Board of Education to this panel to hear this matter on behalf of the full State Board of Education board and make a recommendation to that body. I want to welcome those listening to the proceeding. Panel members, you are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of this Charter Appeals Board. I want to ask each member if they are aware of any conflict that might disqualify them from hearing this matter, or are aware of anything else that would keep them from fairly and impartially deciding this appeal. Ms. Kamnitz, do you have any conflicts of interest in this matter?
No.
Can you be fair and impartial in this matter?
Yes.
Mr. Keena, do you have any conflicts of interest in this matter?
No, sir.
Can you be fair and impartial in this matter?
Yes, sir.
And I do not have any conflicts of interest and state for the record that I can be fair and impartial in this matter. Next, I would like to take a few minutes to share the procedure for the hearing today. Each side will be given up to 30 minutes to present its case and may reserve up to 5 minutes of that time for rebuttal following the main presentation. The panel members may ask questions of the parties either during or after the presentations. At the conclusion of the presentation, the panels will deliberate and vote on a recommended decision to be presented to the full Board of Education at its December 7th meeting, 2023. At its December 7th meeting, the State Board of Education will make a final decision on this matter. Could I ask any other members that are with us today from the State Board of Education or DPI to identify themselves?
This is Ashley Beccaro, the Director of the Office of Charter Schools, and I will be presenting on behalf of the Charter Schools Review Board.
Welcome, Ashley.
This is Allison Schaefer. I'm counsel to the State Board of Education and the panel in this case.
Thank you. Ms. Martin, you're on the call as well.
Yes, this is Lou Martin with the State Board of Education.
And Ruben Fafaria, also with the State Board of Education.
Welcome you both. Welcome to everyone. So I'd now ask the representatives of the Charter Review Board to make its presentation. So we have 30 minutes. Allison will keep the time. So Ms. Beccaro, if you would like to lead away, that'd be great.
Okay. All right. So again, my name is Ashley Beccaro. I'm the Director of the Office of Charter Schools and presenting on behalf of the Charter Schools Review Board, which I'll call the Review Board throughout this presentation. The School of the Arts for Boys, otherwise known as SABA, applied to become a North Carolina charter school in 2020 with a projected opening date of fall 2021. On February 4th, 2021, the State Board of Education approved the application and the schools board entered the mandatory ready to open process, which is implemented by the Office of Charter Schools. On June 3rd, 2022, the SABA board received approval to delay its opening to the fall of 2023. So the school went through the ready to open process for between 2021 and 2023. During the RTO, or the ready to open process, the SABA board requested and received amendments to enrollment and for relocation. General Statute 115C-218.1, subsection B13, requires minimum enrollment for all North Carolina charter schools. Specifically, the statute states that the number of students to be served, which number shall be at least 80, and the minimum number of teachers to be employed at the school, which number shall be at least 3. However, the charter school may serve fewer than 80 students or employ fewer than 3 teachers if the application contains a compelling reason, such as the school would serve a geographically remote and small student population. To my knowledge, there's only one school within this charter school within the state of North Carolina that applied for that type of compelling reason, and they stated it within their application, and they are located in a small area of the Outer Banks. The SABA application submitted in 2020 did not contain a request to serve fewer than 80 students. No amendment request made during the Ready to Open period contained a request to serve fewer than 80 students. On July 1st, 2023, SABA received its 5-year charter agreement following the completion of the Ready to Open process. The charter for SABA contains several binding provisions, including the following. Section 3.1, the state board has reviewed the application submitted by the nonprofit and has approved it subject to adherence to all requirements set forth in this charter and in the Charter School Act. The application is fully incorporated into this charter, and all representations and conditions contained in the application are binding on the charter school. In section 7.1, which states that admission and enrollment of students shall be prescribed by the Charter School Act, which, as I previously referenced, states that a charter school must serve no fewer than 80 students. By signing the charter agreement, the SABA board agreed to be accountable to the state board for purposes of ensuring compliance with applicable laws and provisions of its charters. And this agreement included enrollment of students as prescribed by the Charter School Act, requiring a minimum of 80 students. On August 10th, 2023, prior to opening its doors to students, the Office of Charter Schools sent a letter to the SABA board indicating concerns over the enrollment numbers presented to the Office of Charter Schools. In the letter, the OCS director, Ashley Baccaro, reiterated 3 options she had previously communicated to the SABA board. This letter is within the materials that was submitted to the panel. But one option was to relinquish the charter, and the board could apply for a new charter school at a later date. The second option was to request a second delay. And the third option was for the board to push back the calendar to continue enrollment efforts, and also ensuring that they would meet the minimum requirements required by state for hour and days. In its letter dated August 10th, OCS advised the SABA board in the following manner. Please use the attached information to guide your planning and decision making. Our priority is making sure that all schools open with a strong foundation financially and operationally. Should enrollment come in under 80 students, school business will place the school on financial noncompliance. Allotments will most likely be moved to monthly drops, and there will be an impact on the distribution of funding as numbers are trued up against the CSIDM projection of 116 students. SABA originally projected its student count at 116, and the initial allotment of funding from the state is based on that projection. Following that letter and discussion with Director Baccaro, the board chose to continue forward, and SABA opened its doors to students on August 28th, 2023 in Chatham County. On October 10th, 2023, SABA was placed on governance noncompliance disciplinary status by the School Business Division for the following reason. School of the Arts for the Boys Academy's ADM of 49 students violates general statute, which requires a minimum of 80 students be served. SABA's enrollment of less than 80 students violates the Charter School Act, which requires that a compelling reason for an exception to this requirement be included within the application and that the application be approved as such. SABA's board and school leadership were asked to appear before the Charter Schools Review Board at its regular meeting October 17th, 2023 to present and address the low enrollment numbers. At the October 17th meeting, Valencia Toomer, SABA's head of school, stated they currently have 53 students enrolled. A representative from NCDPI's School Business Division confirmed that they have used 51% of anticipated state funding for the entire year. Mr. Bruce Friend, chair of the review board, asked how they would survive fiscally with the remaining funds of only 49%. Ms. Toomer stated a daycare would be started in fundraising. Mr. Friend stated that he was concerned that a third of the current budget is coming from a daycare that doesn't yet exist. And the current budget is the budget that was presented, an updated budget that was presented to the review board at this October 17th meeting. Following discussion among board members, Bartley Danielson moved that the charter be revoked on or before December 31st, 2023. The motion passed 6-2 with Todd Godby and Stephen Gay opposed. General Statute 115C-218.95 grants the review board statutory authority to terminate a charter and enumerates those reasons. The legislated rationale for terminating a charter is incorporated into the signed charter agreement and is reiterated as follows. 1, failure to meet the requirements for student performance. 2, failure to meet generally accepted standards of fiscal management. 3, violations of law. 4, material violations of any of the conditions, standards, or procedures set forth in the charter. 5, 2/3 of the faculty or instructional support make that request. Or 6, other good cause identified. During the October 17th review board meeting, the review board was presented with data from school business showing that SABA had an enrollment of 48 based on month 1 average JL8 membership, otherwise known as ADM. SABA projected an enrollment of 116. Because the first allotment was based on that 116, further allotments will be based on the actual ADM of 48, which leaves the school with a balance of only $151,337.38. That is 49% of the total state allotment for the year, which means that they have 7 months would be remaining within the school year, with less than half of their total state allotments and less than what was spent in just the first 2 months of school, according to the data from school business. The review board's decision to revoke the charter was due to the school's failure to meet the statutory minimum enrollment, failure to meet generally accepted standards of fiscal management based on this financial data, and other good cause regarding how whether it was possible for the school to remain financially or fiscally viable and operational based on the data that was presented to the review board. The materials that were submitted for this appeal included an updated budget. Revenue stated in this budget includes fundraising, for which our office and the Department of Public Instruction have no, we don't have those records. We don't take part in that fundraising. It also states the National School Lunch Program, and speaking with the EPI staff this morning with the National School Lunch Program, the school has not yet completed the process to enroll within that program. So that money is also revenue that may or may not be available. There's also daycare funding, which as of the October meeting, there was no daycare in operation. So there's substantial amounts of revenue stated within the updated budget that we are not clear actually would actually come to be. And as of today's Power School numbers, the school is currently sitting at 49 students enrolled. I believe those are all the updates, and that is the information I'm presenting on behalf of the review board.
Thank you, Ms. Becerra. You have 20 minutes left. Would you like to reserve some of that for rebuttal?
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Becerra. I'd now like to invite SABA to make its presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. We're waiting for some slides to show up there. Thank you very much for the appeal, and Mrs. Barquero, thank you for keeping such good records on things and keeping us honest. On behalf of the School of Arts for Boys, I am Brent Anderson. I am the chair of the board, and with me today is Valencia Toomer, who is founder and head of schools, and also we have 2 parents that are joining us as well. And that is if it's on the appeal board. If we look at the agenda today, our primary purpose is just to share with you the compelling reason why we are under 80, and to also demonstrate that we are now capable of fiscally managing the imbalance for the rest of the year. and then we would like to have some of the parents talk about what their experience is at the school. Next slide. So our mission at SABA does create a compelling argument that we are really looking at boys who are challenged in the current public school system to empower and build culturally and linguistically diverse boys to be strong, creative academic scholars, critical thinkers, and community leaders through a culturally responsive and arts-based education. If we look at the statistics of the students, approximately 50% are coming from economically disadvantaged homes, 50% in single-parent homes, 22% are neurodivergent, approximately 40% are qualified for free and reduced lunch recipients, approximately 30% receive social emotional support, 10% in households where parents are receiving domestic abuse counseling, and 25% with behavior improvement plans or in the process of receiving those behavior improvement plans. Next slide. On our team of leadership, as I mentioned, Ms. Valencia Toomer is the founder and head of schools, principal of many years in the school district, and familiar with the needs that are part of the fundamental vision and mission of SABA. Myself as the chair of the board and also an educator in universities, Tavares Toomer, board treasurer, Sandra Gardner, our board secretary, also very familiar with the needs in the schools, as well as Ms. Sonia Logan, a board member, and Tamir Cox, works with the Girls and Boys Club. Thank you. So I'm going to have Mrs. Toomer talk a little bit here, and then I'll come back in and continue with the discussion. So Mrs. Toomer, if you're there.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Good afternoon, everyone. We want to address some of the results thus far with our boys at SABA. You know, when we looked at our first grading period and now we're ending our second grading period as of yesterday, 90% of our students are on the honor roll at the conclusion of the first quarter. We have improved data trends in some of our BIP students with less behavioral intervention, tracking that has been needed. We've had noted improvements from psychologists who have talked about the improved data trends in some of the students that they serve. One thing that we're super proud of is the attendance with our parents as far as parent-teacher conferences thus far, and that we have 100% attendance at those conferences. You guys know the research behind having the support for parents, in their child's education, and that it is a direct correlation in increasing their academic achievement. For a special student we discovered their reading ability of a student whose previous data indicated his inability to read and to comprehend. And this student previously had some very some many struggles with behavior, very aggressive behaviors as noted in his previous school. And there was very minimal educational access within the building for this student. And we are happily reporting that student was found to be able to read, that student was found to be able to comprehend text, and there has been 0 instances that reflect what was previously received on that student's IEP and BIP since coming to SABA. Some of the programming results that we are an A+ school. We have completed every requirement as an A+ school. We have participated in professional development, received training, attending workshops, those kinds of things, and making sure that we have music as a part of our programming and drumming. Everything that pretty much speaks to the arts is what we have included in our programming right now, something that is not typically afforded to children in marginalized populations, but we're happy to report that we have those things as part of our specialized programming, and it is successful thus far. We also have athletics as part of our programming, even in a small demographic that we are serving. You know, we fielded a full soccer team. We now have a basketball team. Athletics is crucial to, you know, the learning environment for boys to be engaged, to be active, you know, to compete. And we are very happy. We have the support of our community. We had community sponsors for uniforms, for court and field reservations. We have parents who assist with carpooling. We have all of the community support surrounding us in our specialized programming. And our affirmations is what we talk with our boys about every day, reminding them who they are, that they are kings. And that is something that is stated and reminded to them on a daily basis, as some of the boys who we have received have been told that they would not be successful, have been told that they cannot learn, have been told that, you know, that they are a detriment to society. And we have those affirmations that we are saying every day, that they are repeating every day, that they are kings. I am a king. I am part of a brotherhood of strong leaders. I am unapologetic about who I am and what I stand for. I am intelligent and learn in many ways. I am destined for greatness. I am powerful beyond measure. Who am I? I am a king. But there are some risks that come with removing these kings from their environment, from the academic successes that they have received thus far. And I'll have Dr. Brent Anderson to share some of those.
So our primary concern always comes back and reflects on the boys. And I know in the pursuant to Rule 12 and regarding some of the statutes, that the CSAB and us as the board of SABA have a primary responsibility to protect the students. And we are very concerned that if these students go back into the public school system, that it would be very detrimental to their ability to learn and also to their emotional and social progress. We feel that that is probably the primary concern that we have, and we've made great strides to be able to deal with some of the concerns that the CSAB has. So if we can go to the next slide, we can talk about that. So the first issue is failing to meet the statutory minimum enrollment that Ms. Barquero mentioned of 80 students. And I think that, you know, as we look back and we're new to this as well and trying to understand the ramifications of being a boys' school, particularly a boys' school that is targeting boys that are struggling in the public school system, what those actual numbers are. And we also have been struggling with other aspects of things like acquiring a location, which we talked about. We were not able to get into the location until May of 23. And we could not advertise or really secure the boys. And even though we had over 100 boys that were interested in families, it came down to, you know, 50 boys that ended up in the program. I think also the fact that we served that single gender niche could be considered a special concern. As we look at it and think of hindsight, yes, we are willing to do an immediate amendment to the charter for that purpose, and to make that right, so that it acknowledges the fact that this particular demographic does require that, that stipulation and that amendment to the charter. We're also looking at the idea of the racially and ethnically diverse parents are often risk adverse, and we know that, you know, they're not going to be the early adopters, and this is a new concept for many of these families to be in a charter school. They've accepted the fact that they are not going to do well, that school is not for their boys, that their boys are not going to excel. What we have noticed, and just to bring a note up here, and I'm sure this is part of the standard protocol, I talked about this with Mrs. Barquero, as to why the board was actually calling a lot of these families. Now, I'm sure it's just to verify that these boys were coming to the school and that these families were involved. But we were over 80 boys, and that we were actively recruiting and working with those families. And after those phone calls, we lost 20, 30 boys. And I'm not saying that it's directly related to those calls, but we did have families call us and say they don't want to have attorneys and people calling them, and that they took that as an insult or as a risk to them. So that was their response. And it was at that time that we started realizing that we were not going to hit our 80 boy number in the school program. And we also know that there has been, because of the difficulty of getting a location, trying to get the doors open, quickly moving and doing so, which we did, there still was skepticism in the community and a perception of delayed enrollment. And so we have done our best to be able to do that. Now, I always believe that we don't complain, we come forward with a plan and a solution. And so our solution for this is that we do apply an immediate amendment to the charter, reduce the number of required students to less than 80 to account for that necessary lead time that we lost in the community. We do believe that we will reach more than the 80 students for the 24-25 year, as we will be extending from K to 7, and that will be adding 3 more grades. We also would have open applications, increasing the market and the community outreach starting in January instead of May, which we think would give us a lot more lead time. And we've also shown enough success that many of the community members have already expressed interest in bringing their boys to SABA now that they've seen proof in the pudding. Extensive leverage, existing parents. As was mentioned, that we are opening or operating a pre-K program that is, we hope everything goes well with our permitting this month, that we'll be able to open the doors in January. And that would be 4 to 5-year-olds that would be potentially eligible to participate with us in the school program when they become kindergartners. Go to the next slide. The other concern, and I think this is probably the more important one, I think it's important for us to state that there is no malfeasance whatsoever in the actions of the school. The school, the teachers, the environment, as what Ms. Toomer just shared, it's thriving. These boys are thriving. You walk in the hallways, it is clean, it is respectful. The boys are wearing uniforms, they are participating fully, the teachers are engaging them. My personal background is in physical medicine and health, and we wanted to make sure that these boys were not being forced to sit down all day, that they have 2 recesses, that they have sports, they have art, they have music. And it is our philosophy that if they participate in those, that they can concentrate and participate and be able to learn the socialization skills that are necessary to thrive in the community in their future. So that has been very important to us. In this situation, what we were looking at was obviously the fiscal management. I think as Ms. Vaquero mentioned, this is an incredible challenge, that we feel that we have met that challenge, that we have superseded that challenge of financially holding our own until the end of this school year in June. We have been actively fundraising, and outside of the pre-K program, even if we did not open that program, we have raised enough commitments and money to be able to keep the school viable financially and to maintain that fiscal responsibility to serve those students and not put them at risk of having to be put back into the public school system and harming their academics and their future well-being. Along those lines, we've had a thrust to raise over $100,000 to cover the deficit that we have identified in the finances, taking into full consideration what Mrs. Vaquero mentioned as the amount of money that would be allocated if it was to continue on a monthly drop, and also the deficiency that we would have on a monthly basis. Just recently, we were successful in raising over $60,000 in community funds that were through our Day of Giving and other folks that we've been working with. We have an additional $30,000 committed based on this appeal that they have agreed to put the money in as soon as we hear from the appeal board. And then I personally, with my company, and I'm totally able to do this, have committed up to $75,000 to cover any additional imbalances in that budget. There will not be a deficit and there will not be a lack of services to those boys through the end of June. We have full confidence that by July we will have a full school far exceeding the 80 number minimum, and that the finances are not and will not be a problem for the school to thrive. So I'm going to turn some time back over to Mrs. Toomer, but I do want to make something really clear on this, and that is that, you know, when we look at the actual statutes in there, there's some very important wording in there, and I think that the legislation did that on purpose. And if you look at B13, it says a charter school may It doesn't say shall. It used the word very carefully. And what we're proposing and what we're appealing is that the board works with us to make sure that these boys have the best experience in education possible. We've solved the problem financially. We will still be low enrollment through the end of this term, through the end of June. We're not gonna change that. What we can show is that we will have more than enough boys recruited and signed up to be able to start the next year in a fully compliant way with the statute of the charter school enrollment. And what we're asking is that that word may, and using the discretion of the board and of this appeal board, that you will look seriously at what we are offering and what the damages would be if we were revoked with the fact that we are at 50 boys instead of 80 boys, 50 boys that are thriving, 50 boys that would be greatly harmed if they went back into the public school system. And I'll turn the time over to Ms. Toomer.
And so, you know, to support what Dr. Anderson is saying is, in essence, we don't want to be out of compliance. You know, we did not set out to say we are going to go under, you know, what the general statute recommends. But in fact, you know, we are actually encouraged by the general statute to make a good faith attempt to resolve any differences between us. And SABA is willing. You know, we want the review board to work with SABA in good faith to develop such a plan to continue to meet the needs of the boys who otherwise would be lost if SABA closes the doors. The review board is not mandated to terminate the charter, you know, at this moment because of the violation of the statute. The review board has that discretion to allow SABA to continue operation and to come into compliance with the statute. You know, our data, you know, it's showing we don't have malfeasance. You know, we're doing right by the boys. We want the review board to work with us, to sit with us, to plan with us. You know, we have this opportunity to do something great. You know, when we win, when SABA wins, the Office of Charter Schools win. You know, we are the only all boys school in the entire state. You know, we are looking at, hey, we should be serving as a pilot. You know, get that backing from the review board, get that backing, you know, from the state. And we know we have the backing from the state. You know, when we originally submitted our application, and I remember at the time, Vice Chair Duncan reminded the board at that time that of all the applications that were submitted in that year, SABA was the only application that represented all 6 characteristics of the expectation and that's outlined for charter schools. And we have held that to our heart ever since, you know. And so you have the right people in charge of SABA. You have the right people at the table, but we are simply asking the review board to work with us to come into compliance, not to make this, you know, hasty decision that is going to be detrimental to our boys, to the ones that have made so much growth and progress so far in this school year. In the next slide, you will see some of the data points there. And this is directly coming from our students that we surveyed all of our students in attendance. And, you know, we won't go all of each of the pie charts, but, you know, the kids liking to attend SABA, their teachers are supportive. They enjoy it more than their previous location. And this is in kid-friendly language, nonetheless, you know, but kids are brutally honest. You know, my teachers want me to be successful. All of this data is trending positively. And this is data from out of the mouths of babes, you know, and I think that you will hear as we look at the other slides from our data, this is not Ms. Toomer's data or the board data. This is coming directly from the community. And our children are a piece of that community. And even the parents that we have invited here today, they are representative of the voices of our communities there. And we've listed in the slides, there are some student testimonials, you know, of what they had to say about SABA. If you follow us, you will see even more videos and audio of testimonials that students have and teachers have of the progress that we have made thus far. Our parents, there's data there. Again, I will not quote all of that, but our parents have been super supportive and engaged with us, small but mighty, yes, 50 students, but small but mighty. When our parents were asked to complete this data and we reminded them and resent it and texted and emailed everything we could do to make sure that we had over 80% of our parents responding, this is the response that we received. They are pleased with the learning environment their son is experiencing, and they believe that their son is getting a quality education, have a better learning experience. They're pleased with the academic progress that their sons are experiencing at SABA. More note, their kid is happy and enjoys attending SABA. You will see from some of the testimonials here in a little bit that, it has been like pulling teeth prior to coming to SABA for some students to even want to come to school. And the parents believe that this is the type of individual support and attention that their boys need. Whenever we submitted our letter back in October, just reiterating our compelling reason for operating, I noted that it has been a blessing that we are serving a small student population. If you go back and reflect on some of the data points that we shared about the percentage of students who have IEPs and BIPs and in the middle of FBAs and, National School Lunch Program, all those things are noted there. If you take a look at that, if we send them back to traditional public schools, we are only going to, put them back in an environment that had already proven that it was not the best setting for them. And so we have really been blessed with our small population of students because we can see the needs of the students at a more intimate detail, and we're able to serve them rather than to dismiss them or not have the time to be able to close that academic gap. Here on these next few slides are some testimonials that we have noted from our parents. There were many testimonials that we were sent, and so we just picked a few to share with you. But before we go into the parent testimonials that you are noted there on your screen, I'd like to invite two of our parents to speak at this time. One parent, Ms. Smith, she has followed SABA since the onset, since the submission of our application. And she believed in the mission and vision of SABA then, and she still believes in the mission now. And so I'm going to ask her to speak, and followed with Ms. Smith, I am going to ask Mr. Rafael Gallegos to also speak of his experience with SABA and in any other data points that he'd like to share. So Ms. Smith, if you can unmute, excuse me.
Hello, my name is Ms. Smith. I just want to say thank you for everybody giving me the honor of coming on here and speaking on behalf of SABA. First of all, having a son with autism and ADHD, it's been extremely hard. And I get really emotional over this, but it's been a really hard walk through school for him. He's now in 6th grade. So my apologies if I'm a little bit of emotional, Mom. But I'm so happy with SABA. Him being there is just making his future look so much brighter. I've had the opportunity to move to another state and I'm a single mom. So I refused that opportunity because I didn't want to leave SABA, because it's been so great seeing my son flourish in the little bit of time that he's even been there. And I would never rip that away from him. He's thriving in his academics and his education. For the first time ever in his life, made AB honor roll. This boy, they've had to modify my son's grades in other schools, in public school, and regular traditional public school, excuse me. He would wake up with anxiety, panic attacks, not wanting to go to school. He's waking up so happy and thriving and ready to go to school all through school. He's not ever felt really adequate going to school and having those social emotional problems because of his autism, where he's very engaged with his teachers and the other students that he has around him. So I do feel like if he has this taken away from him, he'll be super crushed, which crushes me as a mom. I feel like he would be lost again, back where we started at point A. Again, none of these things are happening to him. I've been with SABA since the opening day. I'm very grateful for SABA, and I'm very grateful for everybody listening to me as I'm breaking down. He's going to school, he's working hard, and he's gained confidence and he's shining. And again, he deserves to thrive in life, despite his disabilities or anything like that. And SABA is really helping him on his journey of being a young man and a part of a community. So thank you, everybody. That is what I had to say, and sorry I'm emotional. I'm going to hand it over back to you, Ms. Toomer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Mr. Gallegos, if you are able to unmute.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to the board for having me, allowing me to speak today. And I wanted to speak not only as a parent, but as a community advocate. I see SABA as a great opportunity for kids in the community. But first, let me say that echoing everything that has been said about SABA, my son is happy there. He was previously attending a very good school in Raleigh, where he had a difficult time because he, from his experiences, he expressed that there was a lot of cultural gaps between the faculty and unfortunately the student population that made it really hard for him to learn, to pay attention. He's dyslexic. And I also have two kids who are in the spectrum, so we are very much seasoned as far as dealing with administration and so on. And not only does he want to attend school, I really enjoy the fact that Ms. Toomer is such a involved administrator. I think that from all our experiences we have had in different schools, from all our IEP meetings, I have to say that by far, she knows my kid. She has driven my kid home. She cares to know how he's doing. He cares to tell me about his improvements. And that's something that you don't really get unless you really care about your students. Today I had a teacher meeting conference, and I love the fact that not only is he thriving academically, but I love the fact that teachers are telling me that he's growing as an individual, he's getting more confident, affirmations are working, and that he's leading some of the affirmations at the beginning of the day because he believes in them. And coming from where he was coming before, for us, it's been very important because we want him to be a good scholar. We want him to be someone who understands what's happening in the world, but we also want him to be a good person and to understand what it means to be that. And I think in SABA, he's allowing to see that aspect, which I think sometimes in traditional education is overlooked. You know, how do we grow this whole individual, not just ensuring that he's able to get A's and B's so he can get into college. I want to say that again, our experiences with the staff has been amazing. Like I said, someone who goes to IEP meetings regularly, to say that they really know my kid, and he's only been there for a month or so, or even more than that. But I'm really happy with the fact that they are so invested in him. And also to speak as a community advocate, because I see the value of SABA in the community. I want to tell you that it was interesting to hear, to find out, because when Ms. Toomer mentioned that there was a possibility of SABA closing because of the 80 student threshold and other things that were mentioned today, I went and looked, and I wanted to see what other options my kid would have, whether it's in Chatham County or in Lee County. And I noticed that there are other charter schools, but I just want to say that other charter schools in Chatham County, only 8% of one of them has economically disadvantaged kids. Students who go to SABA may not have the opportunity to go to other places where they can experience small classrooms, involved teachers, a thriving environment. SABA allows kids who are disadvantaged, who are minority, are boys, into having a pathway for success. I looked at Lee County and Chatham County suspension rates. And if you are a boy,
Just a minute, Mr. Gayers, your time is up. The time for the presentation is up. Mr. Chairman, if you want to give him a few more minutes to wrap it up, you can do that.
Mr. Gallegos, we'll give you 5 more minutes. We'll give SABA 5 more minutes.
well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I just wanted to say that the value of SABA and by looking at suspension rates as well among boys, black boys, disadvantaged boys, boys with disabilities is very, very high. It's almost twice the regular rate, which is already high to begin with, if you think of. And to me, when I see SABA and I go and drop my kids and I see all these other beautiful kids with amazing futures, I want that for them. I want them to be able to, in the future, if they choose to, they can also attend those more elite schools and they're prepared for it. And I want to see that, know that, you know, we're building a future where most people or more kids have the ability to do that. I mean, I believe that school is a great equalizer, but I also understand that, you know, it is a big job. And sometimes places like SABA that target these very specific populations may be needed because of the fact that are hard to reach, are in some instances faculty might not be able to reach in a way that people at SABA may be able to do. And so I just wanted to urge you and really look into the options that these kids will have if otherwise SABA would not be there. And I do believe that when Ms. Toomer and Dr. Anderson talk about where else would they go, I mean, that is a real problem for many of these kids. My kid chose SABA because when he went there, he loved the environment, he loved the small class size, he loved the fact that kids were treated as brothers. They loved the fact they have affirmation. They loved the fact that teachers wanted to meet him and talk to him. And I think you don't really get that elsewhere. And unfortunately, I hope that you guys have the foresight to understand that for kids who have disabilities and other barriers, you know, this may be the one chance to thrive and hopefully fulfill their full potential. And I really hope you consider extending SABA charter. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Gallegos.
Thank you. We'll turn it back over to you, Ms. Toomer.
Yes, thank you so much. If we could go to the next slides there. The one thing that no one wants to hear or see is what we all saw as a state this week in Southeast Raleigh. And I will quickly share on a personal note for SABA is that we have a family right now who, when she called me about SABA, she told me in her own words, she said, Ms. Toomer, if I don't get my son out of that school, he is going to die. And her son felt that he had to defend himself. Her son was threatened numerous times. And even so, some of the students had the audacity to show up at my student's house and open fire on his home. And right now we have an opportunity to intervene, to remediate right now so that we don't continue to experience the things that as a state, as a county, as a school system that we just experienced in Wake County this week. You know, we talk about, you know, the things that are happening after the fact with our boys. We talk about we need to have programming and more supports in schools and things like that. Well, SABA is that school, you know, and I'm happy that we have found the formula, you know, to save these boys. And we want to make sure that our boys are not removed from a safe environment. They're not removed from a supportive environment, because what you're telling the mother of Cameron, his name is Cameron, what you're telling the mother of Cameron is that if you revoke SABA's charter, that the best environment for her son Cameron is to send him back to a school environment who socially does not accept him, who socially could have killed him, who socially opened fire on his home in a matter of weeks at the start of a school year. So our compelling reason for SABA has never been more evident. In any writing, it's our proof in the pudding. It is our boys in the building. It is the support that we have surrounding our school and our school families. So we thank you for allowing us to present on this day.
Thank you, Ms. Toomer. At this time, I will call on my fellow board members to ask questions. They can ask questions of Ms. Beccaro or Ms. Toomer or Dr. Anderson.
Mr. Blackburn, also, Ms. Beccaro has an additional 20 minutes to respond if she.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I do have just a few things. I really want to reiterate that it's been very evident in the interactions with SABA and the Charter Schools Review Board and previously CSAB. The board has been very supportive of the mission of SABA, and this in no way, their decisions in no way, devalue that mission or have made any allegations that anything, inappropriate is happening at the school financially. This is simply a matter of operational and fiscal feasibility. And I think that's been clear in the fact that the school has, the school's worked with the boards and with our office for 3 years now and trying to, and getting open and trying to make this possible. I would also say that the board wrestled with the section of the statute that was presented in SABA's presentation, which states that the board may exercise judgment, but it also says if the compelling reason is in the application. And there was no compelling reason listed in the application for a request for under 80. And there's good reason to make that a requirement of the application because that allows the review board and the Department of Public Instruction to look at the application with the lens of knowing that a low ADM is very fiscally challenging, and going into it knowing that a school is making a request for a lower than 80 ADM allows that application to be viewed in that lens and to make the judgments in terms of, is this budget sustainable? Is this operationally feasible? And then finally, the board definitely feels for the children that are in the school currently. Our office certainly does not enjoy closing schools, which is why we make every attempt to be very transparent with the requirement for 80 students and what falling short of the ADM would mean operationally and how that could impact the students that are enrolled within that school. But again, it is the responsibility of not only our office, but the review board and the state board to ensure public trust and to protect public funds that go to charter schools. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Beccaro. So I'll ask my fellow board members, do y'all have any questions? If not, I have a question. I would ask Dr. Toomer and Dr. Anderson, did you consider putting this off again because you didn't have the 80 students, or I'm just sort of trying to figure out why that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I can answer that. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Valencia.
Okay, I can start with a response for that. We did consider putting it off yet another year, another opportunity. If you look into any of our minutes, it has always been a discussion. But as we noted, when we looked at our enrollment, we have lost families, since our first delay. And what we noticed in our enrollment is the higher grade levels are the ones that are requesting SABA the most. I know there's folks who say that, hey, we need those lower grades as well, but it is really those 5th, 6th, 7th, the middle school years that have been really seeking for SABA. And so when we had to delay not once, but twice, every year we were losing about 30 or 35 boys. And at this point this year, we were in a situation where we could not delay any longer, with the ones that we had, because we were then going to lose yet another pot. If also you recall in our numbers prior to the first day of school, we had 86 boys and families that had enrolled, had submitted paperwork, have done everything that was asked of them. So we had those numbers and we felt, at the time that we would be okay. And, as Dr. Anderson mentioned earlier, right before we were set to open, our families were kind of spooked, whenever they received those calls from the Charter School Review Board, from the Office of Charter School. And we don't dispute that the Office of Charter School has that right, to verify the enrollment. We just wanted a heads up so that we could contact our parents, so that we could have sent them communication for them to expect those calls. But instead, and this is from the parents that reported to me, is that they felt blindsided, they felt frightened, they felt concerned, they felt that it was something wrong with SABA, and that the parents felt that they were getting special scrutiny by the government, while the Office of Charter Schools, when we spoke to Ashley Beccaro, stated that this could be, looked at as a routine call, it didn't diminish the fact that the parents felt targeted, and even some felt, discriminated against. We have a unique education model. Families do not trust those in positions of authority. And those phone calls were very alarming, and we felt that the Office of Charter Schools single-handedly interfered with and jeopardized the school's fragile trust with the community, trust that we had been slowly building over the course of the years. So we walked into it thinking we had 86, but 86 did not show up on day one for school. Dr. Anderson, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say again, I think, and I appreciate, Ashley, you and I have had a conversation or two ourselves and looking at what are the alternatives at this stage of the game. Because our greatest fear in answer to the initial question was that we would lose momentum and we would lose trust if we continue to delay another year. And opening up became our primary thing. We thought about it, we deliberated over it, and we came to the conclusion that we have to open and we have to move forward with this. I wish we would have understood better the idea of the statute that Ms. Barquero mentioned, of being able to do an amendment that expressed a need for this, because we didn't foresee that. We thought we had in the middle of June, we had 96 boys that were interested and had applied, and 86 or 84 that had confirmed, and then we had 48 that showed up that first month. And so that was a learning lesson for us, but we also realized that we're dealing with a very special population. We're dealing with half of it, and we were grades 3 to 6, as Mrs. Toomer mentioned, to be able to really target those that we felt in our mission had the greatest need. So there's nothing done, in any way to try to be less than 80. Like our goal, we want to be 116. We want to be 200 kids, even in our model, with having the smaller groups and the attention that is designed in the curriculum. And so what we're really asking is, can we collaborate with the charter board in making things work and us becoming compliant over the next year, having a full year to be able to market and to recruit families that are interested, they're watching us. If we close down, there's no chance of us being able to gain trust again in this community. And I think that's the compelling argument, that we need to think about these families and, just extend or stay that revocation to the end of June. Let us financially take that responsibility, which we're prepared to do, continue to offer great education without having community interruptions every 2 months and articles being published and fear being put out in our community that we are targeting. It's a sensitive community. We're asking for the collaboration and the support, and let us take on those lumps of coal that we have to take with finances. We're ready to do that. Support us in the education and help us become compliant with the 80 student statute. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dr. And Ms. Toomer. Somebody else want to ask a question?
Mr. Chair. Hello?
Reggie, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. Ashley, can you, looking at the grounds that y'all stated in the, about 2/3 of the faculty and instructional support personnel at the school request that the charter be terminated. Can you tell me about that? What is that?
That's just, and that does not apply to this particular situation. That is just one of the enumerated reasons you could terminate a contract or a charter.
I like to say I commend Dr. Anderson and all the other ones as to what you're trying to do and attempting to do. I can tell you personally, I know all about the kids that you deal with, and my heart goes out with them. And those are one that I think also we got to be very careful that we can properly educate them. A lot of times we have good intentions and want the best, but sometimes realistic is very difficult. And I know you're saying that if they go back to public school, what will happen, but I just think that when we take them in, we got to make sure we give them that extra that you say that the public schools, traditional schools can't give them. I do have grave concerns about the financial status of the school. I commend the fundraising and other things that you're doing, but I just really don't feel easy right now about whether or not you could sustain and give the kids exactly what they really need. And the presentation was great. I understand the parents. I understand what all of you are saying. I just got to do more thinking. Why was the amendment done sooner about being less than 80? Was there any reason why someone didn't think of that?
May I, is that a question for SABA or for?
Yeah, SABA.
Okay. Well, when Dave Machado was here, we initially called him in the onset of our application, and we actually had a conversation about under 80 students at the moment. And he, just stated in a conversation that, well, Ms. Toomer, you can't have under 80, you have to have 80. So we didn't think that there was an option for us to put anything, other than that. When we were working with Acadia North Star on our finances, with our numbers, they helped us to figure out a comfortable budget and figure out our, enrollment numbers, but all of our compelling reasons for why we're doing what we're doing is listed in our application. And, and I know that, it continued to be mentioned about, we didn't put it in our application, but when an email was sent to Ashley Vaquero on August 14th, we requested special dispensation regarding meeting our enrollment targets. We requested that, and that was prior to us opening. That was prior to us, opening our doors. So at that point, we were still applicants, at that point. So we didn't think that there was an option for us. And sometimes, when you are, a grassroots school like SABA, and, we aren't attached to an EMO or CMO or, corporations that, have gone down this road, it begins to be, what you know and what you don't know. And sometimes there's hidden language. Sometimes there's hidden messages. And our students, our very students that we are serving right now, they are experiencing that in the educational system, that this same thing. And as adults right now in the educational system, we sitting as SABA, sitting as a board of directors, sitting as a founder and head of school, we are still sitting in a place where there's hidden, messages that, if we don't hit it right, that it's all left up to interpretation. And right now, I feel like that's where we are. The Charter School Review Board could look at our application totally and say they do have a compelling reason. The Charter School Review Board could look at our application and say, we don't have to revoke their charter right now. We proved to you guys in our presentation that financially we can support the school through the end of the year. Our deficit was around 70,000 or so. We sought out to raise 100,000. We're at 60,000 right now in our bank that we raise via donations. So financially, we are able to continue to support the school. But yes, there was consideration for operating under 80, but we were told that we had to have 80. We couldn't do anything under 80. And that's the way we operated. Yet, even before our doors open, we still ask for that special dispensation regarding meeting our enrollment requirements to Ms. Beccaro.
So with the fundraising, you're saying that, well, this year we will have enough money. So is fundraising the next option for the next year too?
I'll answer that. And, we're expecting to far exceed the statute and be able to live within our means. We certainly have really worked on our budget to keep the costs down and to be able to only spend where we have to spend. I also want to make comment that anytime you start a new project, there's always startup fees. And there's always startup costs that have to happen. And we moved into a new space that needed a lot of things to be able to make it accessible to the boys. And so when it was mentioned that we used a large portion of that initial distribution in the first couple of months, that was not just for our operating expenses. There were some startup expenses. Our operating expenses are down as low as they can go, and we have figured it out, and we're sustainable and able to give that quality service to the boys, to our teachers, to our staff, to the community at that budget. And we've raised the money for that budget, and it is within the budget that would be allotted to us if we were over the 80 students. So what we're expecting is that in 24-25, we are not going to need to do that except for maybe special projects or buying new things for the school, or doing a campaign to be able to build a new building. But for sustainability and operation, we expect to live completely within the allocation that is afforded us by state and local county budget. And we're prepared to do that now. And even with the allocation, that budget, the monthly drops, we're prepared right now. We are fine until May. And I'm telling you that I personally am guaranteeing up to 75K, which we don't even have to touch, to make sure that we do not have any deficits. And I'm completely capable of doing that. So you can check my bank account if you want.
No, I'm not interested in that. I just want to, let me ask this question. How do you know you're going to have 80 kids by? How do you know that?
I think the biggest thing is we have a full season to be able to recruit, plus we have a proof of concept. So we're adding 2-3 grades, we have a proof of concept, we can start opening up the lottery in January for people wanting to come into the school. And we have lots of people that are interested, but they pulled out, and now that they see that we are still there, they'll come back. And we have complete confidence that we will exceed the 80, and our goal is to be closer to 140. And we understand the statute. We understand the hidden language that we didn't understand before. We want to work with Ashley's team. We want to work with them and be able to hit those numbers and to be a viable charter school that doesn't have to have an exception. It doesn't have to have an amendment. That we want to be a viable charter school, and we see that. And the fact that we've gained boys since we opened, not lost boys, is a statement in of itself. If this school was a hoax, we would have gone from 50 boys down to 20 boys. That didn't happen. The school is doing its purpose. It's doing its job. It's meeting the whole vision of the program. And it just would be a shame for us not to be able to collaborate and work together to overcome that one violation of the statute. We've taken care of the finances, so we don't need to use that anymore as a reason. It's just literally the fact that we are under 80 students and that we are working together with you and with the board to be able to far exceed that 80 number, which we believe we can do. We do need to collaborate, though. I think the idea of thinking and treating it like a traditional charter school is also a false premonition. I think that's dangerous. I think we have to understand that we are catering to a very special population, and we need to communicate and collaborate. It would have been nice to have been called and told that we're going to check your validity and see if you really are having this many boys or not. We gave them the list, right? These are lists that we've been calling and nurturing and speaking to. I particularly called most of the Hispanic families because I speak fluent Spanish, and trying to cultivate that, even with me calling them as a board director, was challenging because it was authoritative and it was trying to culture and nurture those relationships of why they don't understand charter schools. And then to have that come in and ask why they're pulling them out of public school was scary to them. And so that's where the collaboration has to happen. We need to communicate. We need to understand the vision of SABA and move forward in that direction. And I think we're going to thrive. I mean, we see it already.
And I'd like to add to what Dr. Anderson stated. You know, you asked the question about, you know, how can we guarantee, you know, 80? I mean, in essence, the short answer is no, you cannot guarantee 80, which is why we stated even in our presentation to remedy that is we will immediately, you know, add this addendum, you know, to our charter application. Again, like I said, we attempted to do that prior to opening, but here we are. So yes, we're perfectly fine with saying, hey, we do have this, you know, unique population and, you know, allow us to operate under 80. But I think, you know, at this point, you know, our concern is the boys, and saying in 2 weeks that they will no longer be able to come back to SABA. And if we're saying that, hey, we want to, in good faith, work with the Charter School Review Board to, you know, to come to an agreement on things, to develop that plan, you know, for them, then all we're asking is if we're financially stable and we have proven that we are, allow us to the end of the school year, you know, and if at that time, you know, there's not data to support, you know, continuing SABA to operate, then our boys have 3 months to transition. I have 3 months to be able to attend meetings to get them transitioned back to their traditional public school setting. I have 3 months to be able to attend IEP meetings. You know, I have time to help them transition, but telling these families in, you know, in a matter of 2 weeks that we have to, you know, send them back to an environment that was not proven beneficial to them is where our concern is. And if we're all believing the same thing, that we're trying to do what's best for our kids, then we're showing you that we're financially stable and we can finish this school year. Then we're just asking, you know, you guys to give us that opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Ms. Toomer. I'm going to call on Ms. Piquero.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify a few things. First being that the application was submitted in 2020, and the statute is very clear that the application contains a compelling reason. So neither myself or my office can make a week before school is scheduled to open, make a decision to allow a school to come in under 80. That's just not something that we can do. And a school, once that school is approved, which occurred in February 2021, that is when the school is no longer considered an applicant, but is now part of the planning period. And I would also say that while I certainly hear the school wanting to be partners with the board and with OCS in making this school feasible and to continue operating, I would say that the school has been in the ready to open process now for over 2 years prior to opening, that our staff had made considerable amounts of time and dedication in trying to make sure that the school was, one, completely aware of all the requirements, including the 80 ADM. The application and the preceding enrollment amendments projected at 116 at all times. In 2023 alone, staff had one-on-one calls with the school January 13th, March 9th, April 27th, May 5th, May 24th, June 2nd, July 27th, August 4th, and August 9th. And that is not including any of the planning year sessions that take place or other support that is given. So our argument would certainly be that what has been 3 years since the application was submitted in 2020 for the school to show that they are able to have an 80 minimum ADM and to have a financially viable budget based on that ADM. And that support has been given, and our office has been extremely transparent with the requirements to open a school, including having a minimum number of 80 students. I would also say that when there has been references to calling parents, that is something that occurs when we, during the summer prior to an opening, when a school is very close to an 80 number, because traditionally we know that a school will lose at least usually 10% of what they are assuming will show up on day one. Of those, we were given a list of 87 students, and only 41 were contacted, so less than half. They were simply asked if they would be attending school on Monday. Was that coming up Monday? 13 stated they were no longer considering, 24 were confirmed, and 4 said maybe. That information was given to the board to make a decision because, as it was stated in our letter, this is nearly 15% of expected enrollment on day one and based on less than half of the parents being contacted. So our argument would certainly be that this was information that we were providing to the board so that they could make a good decision going into opening over the next few weeks, and that all of our conversations with parents were quick and friendly and simply a call to confirm enrollment.
Thank you, Ms. Picaro. At this point,
Mr. Blackburn,
yes,
I do have a couple questions. I'm sorry.
please go ahead. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Hamden.
Or, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I thought you were about ready to move on.
No, I'm not ready to move on. You ask questions, Ms. Campus.
All right, just a quick question, Ashley, and I don't know that it affects the current situation, but just for my own curiosity, it sounds to me, without knowing what the definition of an alternative school is, it sounds to me like this population might qualify for that. Without going into any great detail, would that have been an option here?
A school, well, a school has to apply as an alternative school.
Right, but if they had chosen that?
Yes, if they had chosen that, that could have been an option.
Okay.
I mean, I can't say that they would qualify, but yes, they could have applied as one.
Oh, okay, all right, thank you. And then a question for Dr. Anderson and Ms. Toomer. A couple of questions. First of all, going back to Dr. Anderson, when you reviewed the board with us, I did notice that the treasurer is Mr. Toomer, and I have to ask you, is there some relationship between Ms. Toomer and Mr. Toomer? Are they related?
There is. And that has been part of the founding structure getting started. And there has been a conflict of interest signed affidavit that is in place. And I have been put in charge of making sure to check all financial things in the interim. And also Mr. Toomer knows that once we were established that he would step down from the treasurer position. We've needed to have him on the board to be able to help us work through this year particularly. But there is a signed conflict of interest that is there, and we're aware of it, and we've made provisions to have a supervising board member of all financial actions that he would be doing. And as far as any kind of check signing or those kind of things that would involve Mrs. Toomer, I'm the one that takes care of that.
And if I could add to that, Gio, from Dr. Anderson, is just to make note here for meeting's sake is that, Mr. Toomer's, career and profession is an accountant.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yes, that is his everyday job. And so naturally opening a school, starting it, on our own, he knew how to help us and guide us, with Acadia as well, with our finances. So I did want to publicly make note of that is his actual profession as a finance manager for actually the state association.
All right. Then a couple of other quick questions. How many teachers do you have at the moment?
Right now, there are 4 teachers.
Okay. And then a quick question about academics. You've talked a couple times about that you will have proof of concept. Do you have any kind of academic data at this point? I thought you made a very compelling case in terms of the other aspects, but any academic data at this point, other than I'm thinking in terms of testing. I know you said a lot of the boys had made the honor roll, but do you use NC check-ins, anything that would give us?
Yes, we do. We do have NC check-ins. We have iReady data that we use. We're also using American Reading Company, where they have diagnostics, growth measurements for our boys, and so we have seen those trend positively as far as math and ELA data is concerned. We thought we were working with some students who could not read. I'll give you examples. Even for third grade, we thought that's what we were dealing with. So some of our initial data was not as accurate as we wanted it to be, meaning, for example, when we were doing inventories, reading inventories with the students, we were starting on pre-kindergarten lessons based on IEPs that we received. And so then as we began to go through, the teacher had to kind of go through and cycle back through a whole case of students. Yet we're still seeing those positive trends, which is some of what Mr. Gallegos was talking about, is being able to see that data trend positively for our students.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, Ms. Kamnitz, Mr. Keenan, do you have any other questions?
No, sir.
No, I don't.
Ms. Kamnitz, Mr. Keenan, I think we need to go into closed session to consult with our attorney. So do I have a motion that we move into closed session to consult with our attorney?
So moved. I'll
Okay.
second.
Thank you. So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor denote by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, we won't do a roll call, but so Ms. Kamnitz and Mr. Keenan both said yes. So we're going to move into closed session to consult with our attorney. Rather than have everyone wait online for this, we would ask that you rejoin the call at 2:00 when we will reconvene in open session. I'm sorry, but this is an important decision and we want to make sure that it's done correctly. So we'd ask that everybody reconvene at 2:00 when we reconvene into open session.
We thank you for that consideration, Mr. Blackburn.
Thank you.